Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Bacon. Welcome to the show, y'all. He came into my life in the kind of quiet that only happens at 2 in the morning when the unit hums like an old refrigerator and the keys drag like a tired parade. They cracked the door, slid a new body in, and said his name like it owed them money. Cornell Davis. Tall in that way a man seems tall when he doesn't know where to put his hands. Eyes like he just read the ending to a book he didn't plan on finishing. Top or bottom, I asked. He glanced at the bunks, glanced at me. Top's fine, he said, voice careful like he didn't want to disturb the air. He climbed slow and lay flat, staring at the ceiling like it was a question with a permanent frown. I gave him the two basics a new bunk he needs, where the hot water hides in the sink, which CO pretends not to hear when you laugh after count. He nodded at the first, smiled at the second, and went still like a photograph. We didn't talk much that night. First nights of funerals for the life you expected to have. You let a man hear his own heartbeat and decide whether the sound is a threat. Morning came. He folded his blues with a neatness you only see when somebody's trying to give order to chaos. He reached down to shake my hand like we were signing a local peace treaty. Cornell. Joe, I said back. He didn't talk about his case for 3 days. Normal rhythm in here. Men wait to see if their own mouth will betray them. They inventory what they can carry before anything spills. On the 4th day, after chow, oatmeal pretending to be mercy, he sat on the edge of the top bunk and looked down at me like a storm moving off, but still close enough to hear. You ever drive a car for a friend? He asked. Yeah, I said, back when I mistook favors for religion. He huffed a laugh with no humor. Thought I was doing a favor too. He told it plain, like he didn't want the story dressing itself up for company. His boy since middle school, Terrence Monroe, folks called him T, needed a ride to Atlanta. I don't like buses, T said, and my license is on vacation. Cornell had a beat-up Impala with more faith than gas and a soft spot for old debts. Plan was simple. Drive down, crash a cousin's spot, drive back. Gas money, a Wendy's bag, a playlist that made bad decisions sound like they had a soundtrack. Before we left, Cornell said, T told me keep the trunk shut. Said it sticks and he ain't want me wrestling with it at the pump. He paused, breath like footsteps in the dark. I ain't think nothing of it. I just ain't think. They hit I-75 with windows cracked, catching radio sermons and call-in love songs. Cornell said the road felt like a ribbon laid out by somebody who had already forgiven him. T slept half the way, he said, mouth open, dreams smiling. Near Macon, a trooper's lights bloomed in the rear view like bad news growing teeth. License and registration. Cornell handed over a tired piece of paper that had traveled too much. Trooper bent low, sniffed, asked where they were headed, who owned the car. T, Cornell said, chin toward his boy. The trooper looked at T, then at the trunk like it had whispered his name. Pop it. It sticks, Cornell said. Then unstick it, the trooper answered, hand on his belt like punctuation. He popped it. The lid lifted slow, like a curtain at a show you didn't buy tickets for. The smell came first, iron and old pennies, then the shape of a man in the wrong position to be breathing. Everything after that was a cascade. Hands on steel, asphalt against cheek, T's voice, I don't know nothing. Then silence like somebody hit a switch. They rode in separate cars to a station that smelled like dust and disappointment. Cornell said they asked the same question in 30 different sweaters. Whose body? Who did it? When'd you know? He answered the same way. I ain't know. I ain't know. He looked down at me like he was still asking permission to believe himself. I ain't know, he repeated, small now. I said, sometimes the worst truths come dressed like favors. The DA sold the jury a clean story with a bow. 2 men, 1 trunk, a road between sin and destination. Forensics couldn't put Cornell's hands on the body, but proximity is a hungry prosecutor. They gave him 20 for felony murder, accessory, conspiracy they couldn't prove but could paint. T copped to a firearm charge, pled the crumbs that let him breathe free while the rest got sorted. By the time sorted arrived, it wore a suit that didn't fit Cornell. He landed in my cell 10 months later carrying quiet like luggage, no whining, no rage. He built routines like scaffolding, push-ups at dawn, letters Wednesdays, cards Sundays, a small prayer before the state coffee. You appealing? I asked. He nodded. Public defender filed something, words on paper trying to outrun a verdict. Appeals move like molasses toward a door that doesn't know your name. We learned each other's small habits, how he hated the TV when the volume sat in the middle, how I slept with 1 sock on because my feet couldn't agree on temperature. He talked about a girl sometimes in an almost whisper, Tiana Foster, pretty enough to make trouble put on a tie. He didn't brag. She's steady, he said. He wrote weekly like he was building a bridge with envelopes. She wrote back, faithful, sometimes late, always warm. Spring brought a letter with curves in the handwriting he didn't recognize. He read it. The color fell out of his face. He folded it, unfolded it, read again, slower, like the words had teeth. Say it, I told him. Don't let it chew you alone. It's from Tiana's cousin, he said. She says T been around. Looking out for Tiana, driving her places, lifting bags, and his jaw locked, unlocked. He got her pregnant. There it was. The ugliest truth sits down like it paid rent. I didn't pretend shock. Humans do math that gets a failing grade anywhere but survival. Cornell didn't cry. He cleaned the sink, straightened the books, lined his state toothbrush with military precision. He wrote Tiana a letter that didn't taste like blood. He wrote T a letter that did. Days later, T wrote back with that breezy tone men use when they know the people they're talking to can't reach them. Big C, don't trip. You know I got you. Things got complicated. Tiana needed help. You know how it is. Complicated, Cornell repeated, like the word had a flavor. He laughed, sharp, dangerous. Man wrote like I'm his overdue light bill. He didn't write T back. He wrote Tiana. I won't curse you. I won't bless him. Do right by the child. I won't make a home worse by asking to be in it while locked away. Every man in here owns a moment he could turn into a bomb. Cornell's didn't explode. It burned slow like a fuse dipped in patience. He woke earlier, more push-ups, longer prayers, clean beneath the bunk like removing a stain nobody else could see. What if the appeal's empty? I asked one night. I'll do 20 on a favor I didn't ask enough questions about, he said. You ain't gonna tell. He looked at me like I'd asked to borrow his name. I drove, he said. That's my part. T killed that man, I said. Probably, he said. But guilt ain't a coat I can hang on somebody else just because it fits him better. I wanted to argue, but he wasn't asking who to be. He was telling me who he was. Word traveled that T was outside strutting foolish, buying sneakers, sending selfies. You can't stop news from dripping through steel. It finds the smallest holes. Tiana's belly grew. Cornell's patience did too, like rings you only see after cutting the tree. He never asked me to hate T with him. He hated alone when he had to, stored the rest behind his eyes, and he did something else. He wrote the dead man's mother, I drove the car. I did not know. I cannot ask for mercy. Telling you is a kind of asking. She wrote once, you didn't pull my son from me, but you drove him around dead. There is a price. Pay it and leave me be. He kept that letter with the appeal papers, documents that understood sentences. Summer washed over us, the vent made hot air louder. Cornell played chess on a trash bag tablecloth, patience that made bishops nervous. One afternoon he said he believed in roads and that your feet tell on you. He replayed the drive like film, gasoline, billboards, tea snoring, a trunk heavy with something other than tools. If I checked at the Shell in Forsyth, would I be here? Maybe in a worse way. I said, maybe next to him. He nodded like he didn't want to argue with fates more than one. News, a girl, Leilani. A kite crawled through the tear like a rumor with a diaper. Cornell read the stats like a scout, 7 pounds, 9 ounces. He wrote Tiana about wind, lullabies, keeping a house cool, sirens by the window, eating first so the milk comes. Weeks later, a photo, cheap ink, small face already skeptical. He stuck it up with toothpaste and breathed different near it. On her first birthday, Tiana allowed a video call. Prison calls looked like tiny TVs trying not to cry. We huddled so the camera caught his whole face. Leilani waved, braid wild, eyes undecided about the world. Cornell tried, "Hey, baby girl," but it came out like a prayer swallowing a sob. "Say hi to Mr. Joe," he added. I waved like an uncle who knew enough to stay out the way. That night, he lay still and didn't sleep. Some men can hold their breath for an entire night. Parole rumors swept a tear, cruel little wind chimes of maybe. None belonged to Cornell. His sentence didn't bend that way. T sent a postcard, cartoon palm trees. On the back, "We good out here." No name, didn't need it. Hate recognized his handwriting. Cornell ran water over it till the palms bled green, turned it to pulp, and fed the toilet god that accepts garbage. "Why never tell?" I asked. "I don't know what happened in that room," he said. "Only know I kept driving when the trunk felt wrong. That's mine and her. She belonged to me once," he said. "Belonging ain't the same as being good for somebody." The appeal came back neutral. No relief, no remand. We read your suffering and find it consistent with our statutes. He climbed down, sat on the floor, back to steel, hands on knees like volunteering to be a statue. "You want to scream?" I asked. "I want to finish without becoming something I gotta apologize for to God." He taught GED on Tuesday, showed Keon Butler how two stubborn numbers meet in the middle. "These numbers ain't enemies," he say, "they just stubborn." Find the common ground. Keon, who fought first and asked math for forgiveness later, stared at the page like maybe it could open. A winter later, Tiana sent a photo of Leilani in a pink coat, missing 2 teeth. On the back, she likes marigolds. He stuck it next to the first 2 corners of a life he could only visit like a ghost with stamps. Count time, Davis, legal. He returned with rain in his face. "Somebody talked," he said. A man in another county doing time said T confessed drunk, named the dead man the trunk, laughed about the driver who took that ride for love. New motion filed. DA made a face. Judge sighed. It idled for months like a train that lives at the station. Then the chaplain's voice, funeral tone, came crawling down the tier. "Tiana," he said, "hit and run, rain slick road, Leilani alive. Tiana gone." Cornell sat down like a building called condemned. A video call followed. Leilani with a unicorn Band-Aid, brave little wave. "Be brave," he whispered. Judge finally heard the motion. DA shrank the room with law. PD laid out the confession. Under advisement, court for let me eat lunch while your life waits. Ruling, denied. Witness not reliable, verdict supported. He folded the order, unfolded, folded, rehearsing the burial. "I'm still here," he said. "You are," I said. From there, the calendar kept eating. He moved through the unit like a man navigating a museum of mistakes, stopping at exhibits only long enough to read the plaque. He started sanding down the rough edges on a wooden chessboard someone made in wood shop years back. Squares uneven, corners mean. He'd run his thumb along the grain until it stopped catching on splinters. Everything wants to be smoother than the state leaves it, he said once, half smiling. Sometimes we sit by the window near the radiator and watch the yard like it might confess something if we stared hard enough. I asked him if he ever imagined a different road, one where T canceled the trip, trunk empty, car clean. Nah, he said, I imagined the same road, but me asking the question I never asked. He tapped the metal frame. What's in the trunk? He let the words hang until they rusted. He kept writing Leilani. Birthday cards that made rhymes out of her name. Little drawings of a marigold wearing sunglasses. Advice tucked between jokes. How to be kind without being lunch. How to tie your shoe so it doesn't come undone at the worst time. How to tell the difference between a friend and a man who wants to borrow your light and never return it. When she wrote back, the letters came in crayon constellations. Dear Daddy Cornell, she'd start, because somebody taught her that names matter. She'd tell him about clouds shaped like buses, teachers shaped like questions, and how the marigolds were taller than her elbow now. He'd press each page flat, then lie down and hold the letter on his chest until the panic let him breathe regular again. There was a day the COs did a surprise shakedown, and some rookie ripped down Leilani's picture like it was contraband. Cornell stood up slow. You could feel the room tilt toward violence like a glass tipping. He swallowed it, picked up the photo, smoothed the crease with a thumb that had learned patience the hard way, stuck it back with a dab of toothpaste. The rookie said, regulations, no decorations on the wall. Cornell said, that ain't decoration. That's oxygen. The sergeant heard it, saw the lightning starting to gather, and told the rookie to keep moving. Sometimes mercy shows up wearing stripes by accident. Another morning, yard fogged up like the world was trying to hide its face. Cornell walked the track with Rashad Douglas, a young lion who thought anger was cardio. Rashad asked why Cornell never went after T through people on the street. Cornell said, because I'm not letting a man who loves shortcuts redraw the map of me. Rashad shook his head like he wanted blood so bad he could taste iron. What if that man deserves it? He asked. Cornell answered, then the world will circle back. It always does. I'm busy lifting what I picked up. We had a chaplain who liked metaphors too much. He once preached about Samson pushing pillars, said every man in here had a pillar to put his shoulder on. Folks snickered. Cornell didn't. He told me later, my pillar ain't revenge. It's refusal. I refuse to climb on somebody else's truth, even if it gets me the view. That line stuck to me like dry paint on a good shirt. One evening, Count dragged because somebody went missing who wasn't missing, just asleep behind the library shelves. We got stuck standing in the doorway, two statues waiting for permission to breathe. Cornell said, you ever smell forgiveness? I laughed again the way I did the first time. I'm serious, he said. It's like rain after smoke, memory and water sharing a glass. I said nothing. Let him have the line. He earned it. When spring came back around, he started a thing on Tuesdays after GED. Office hours, he called it. Notebooks open, younger ones with questions that sounded like confessions, how to write a letter that doesn't sound desperate, how to apologize without turning yourself into a rug, how to say no to a favor that smells like a fuse. Cornell would listen with his elbows on his knees, nod slow, and hand out sentences like tools. Write what you can keep living with, he told Jameer Richardson, who kept trying to apologize for things he was still doing. Say it like you got to read it back to your daughter one day. He told Autumn Lewis' cousin across the table in the women's wing via kite he was building men without a workshop. We never saw T again except in rumors. He became one of those ghosts that phones use to scare people into answering. He got locked on a VOP, somebody said. He beat it, somebody else said. He out there selling shoes, a third voice offered, like that made anything right. Cornell would shrug when the echoes reached him. Even gravity forgets a man for a second, he said, but it always remembers. Leilani started school, drew a picture of a man with a square head and long arms holding a flower. She mailed it with 4 stickers and 2 misspelled sentences about recess. Cornell taped it under the marigold photos. That me? I asked, joking. He smiled. That's Hope with a haircut. On the anniversary of the arrest that gave him 20 years, he cooked a spread with the last of his commissary: noodles, summer sausage, squeezed cheese, crushed chips for crunch, pickles cut thin like generosity. We ate slow, and he told me something that didn't sound like him at first. I used to think loyalty was a staircase that only went up, he said. Turns out it's a hallway with a lot of locked doors, and you got to check the doorknobs before you start running. I nodded, because some truths are so true they don't need applause. Another letter from the court, administrative nothing wrapped in polite. He put it in the Bible the way you press a dead leaf into a book so it stops pretending to be a tree. You done? I asked. Chasing ghosts? He said, I ain't chasing. I'm learning to walk while they follow. There's a sound in here when the tear goes quiet at night. Vents whispering, steel contracting, a cough 5 cells down, the long breath before sleep. That's when men talk to the ceiling. That's when I'd hear Cornell murmur Leilani's name, not as a spell, as a measurement, a way to keep the world from shrinking to the size of his charges. One last scene stays with me. A storm knocked the power out, emergency lights turning everybody's face into a confession. The COs shouted down the tier like flashlights pretending to be brave. We sat in the dark, backs to the wall. Thunder walked the roof like it owned the place. Cornell whispered, It's strange, Joe. What is? How a man can carry a truth that heavy and still feel lighter than the man who refuses to touch it. The lights blinked back like they changed their mind about leaving. He closed his eyes, opened them, and looked less haunted. If you're waiting for revenge or snitching or some ending that polishes the rust, it ain't in this chapter. Cornell believed in roads and feet telling on you. His feet said, I drove. So he served. He taught fractions to men who swore math hated them, remembered CO kids' birthdays like a small knife to whittle days, wrote letters full of marigolds and courage to a girl who might one day ask hard questions and deserve soft answers. To me, I learned from him that sometimes the bravest thing a man can do with a truth is hold it still. Not toss it around to cut other people, not swallow it to cut himself, just hold it. Let it teach him how to walk without tripping over who he used to be. That's what I'm doing tonight, sitting under this humming vent, listening to the unit breathe, thinking about a highway ribboning through dark trees, a trunk that should have been a question, and a friend who decided not to trade one sin for another just because it would have been easier to sleep. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.